You found your way to the Winning Tactics podcast with host Adam Sinkus. Adam discusses winning tactics with small business owners and entrepreneurs, uncovering processes and introducing the tools and solutions for enhancing the bottom line. Thanks again for finding your way to the Winning Tactics podcast, and now your host, Adam Sinkus.
What is going on, Winning Tactics crowd? So happy to be back yet another Tuesday. I can't believe we are like the third week of March already. This year seems to be flying by. Excited though for today because we're talking about mindset, and I absolutely love mindset because I think it's so important in your success. And I'd like to welcome my guest to the show, John Davis. Welcome to the show. So glad to have you on. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, that's a loaded question. Thank you, Adam, for having me here today. Who am I and what do I do? Well, I am John Davis, known as the corporate action hero. And right now I'm a keynote speaker, and I go in and I teach people how to take small businesses to the next level using their mind. I got that name, the corporate action hero, because I started off in my younger days as a stuntman and a fight director, and I had a traumatic event that happened to me that made me rethink the way I lived my life, and through mindset I was able to get past that.
Awesome. Well, we are so glad to have you on the show. If you are in the audience, we always like your participation, so drop comments in there. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have throughout the show as well. But we're going to dive into this because we are talking about mindset, and you talk about the 5 F's of achievement. But let's first start kind of before we get into those 5 F's. Tell us a little bit about your story, because it is an interesting story, and I think it shapes, how powerful mindset really is.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely is. Well, my dream in life when I was a child was to be a stuntman. I wanted to be, sword fighting for a living, a swashbuckler, wearing tights and doing crazy things. That's what I wanted to do. And so I really was excited about doing that, and ended up going to a Renaissance festival and meeting 2 gentlemen who were 2 of the top fight directors in the world. And they really inspired me to keep going. So I really started getting into martial arts and all kinds of different fight styles, and started getting buff and strong, and was really feeling good. And back in those days, I had Fabio hair and the long flowing locks. Today I have this, solar panel for a love machine. But the idea was that back then, a friend of mine asked me to come over to his house and help him unload a box of boxes of clay. I don't know, the van that was filled with boxes of clay. And I went out to his house, and I climbed up in his van, and I picked up the first 80-pound box of clay. And when I turned to set the box outside of the van, my upper body literally separated from my lower body. I literally, in the twisting action, my spine split in 2 and pinched off my spinal column. And I found myself paralyzed. So they rushed me to the hospital, and the doctor said, John, you have a condition known as spina bifida occulta. And I said, Gesundheit, because I had no idea what he meant. So I said, okay. He says, well, you have 3 vertebrae that never formed properly at birth, and when you twisted today, you literally unscrewed your back from itself, and it fell apart and pinched off your spinal column. The next thing he said was the moment of truth for me. He said, this is a condition that you will never overcome. You'll never be a fight director. You'll never be a stuntman. You'll never have a physical career. You need to start thinking about the sedentary career. Now, he said that to me when I was 22 years old, and was at the beginning of my career, and it was a devastating moment. And while I was lying in that hospital bed, somebody gave me a book, and the book was called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. And as I read that book, I found all kinds of inspiration in it, because it really is a book about his philosophy towards martial arts. Mm-hmm. And as I read the book, I was like, this is amazing. But there was this one section in there that talked about mental flexibility, being like water. And after reading that book, I got inspired. And then I found out that when he wrote that book, he was in traction right after a doctor had told him that he would never do martial arts or lift a weight again. So we were in the same place. And by starting to incorporate the mental flexibility and started leveraging my present moment, I was then able to within a few weeks, was able to move my legs. With less than a month, I was able to sit up. Within 6 months, I was walking. Within a year, I was back to my normal before I became all buff and strong. And then in a year and a half, I did my first 3-story high fall off of a building. So it was a year and a half turnaround. Not that everyone does that after they have that kind of accident, but I did.
Of course.
So it really was the start of figuring out what those 5 F's were. And then later in my life, I started incorporating what I learned in that moment into the rest of my life, into my business, and into a lot of different areas of my life. And it changed everything.
Yeah, what I think is so interesting, right? You hear professional athletes all the time talking about how they use mindset to get in the right space for a game, to prepare for the next play, how they use things like visualization. All that stuff is all about getting into the right headspace. And I think oftentimes as business owners, we lose track of what is the right headspace to be in to truly be successful. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting you put it that way, because when you're a new business owner, you're looking at a giant goal that you've set for yourself to have a successful business, and that's huge. And sometimes it gets very daunting, and then the day-to-day minutia that you have to go through of all the paperwork and all the various aspects of other things that you have to do really can get overwhelming, and you get into a space of fear. And when you get into that space of fear, that's an emotional state, and you've got to change the mindset around the moment to actually get to that next level. And when we get into the 5 F's, I'll break it down into how you actually do that. But the interesting thing is, as a small business owner, your fear is just as legitimate as any other fear you'll ever live in your life. If you're in a moment where you're in a house fire, it's just another level of fear, but it's all the same thing. It's all fear.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, right? You're talking about fear, right? Because business owners, even as a business owner myself, right? There's times where you're like, you may be thinking, okay, how am I going to eat tomorrow? And that's real, but you also can't put that out in front of your customers or your clients either. You're like, yeah, but I have to come off as this exuded, really experienced, super professional, whatever your persona is that you normally put out in clients, and not allude to the fact that if you don't sign this deal, you might not get dinner tomorrow, And so I think, another piece of the fear that we realize is this, that we spend so much time suppressing it to get through to the next thing.
Right. But if you think about this, here's the key element about fear itself. Fear, when you break it down scientifically, is an emotional reaction to some future event that may or may not happen, with your focus on it being a negative outcome. Mm-hmm. It's simply negatively focused uncertainty. So if you're sitting in your present moment and you're focusing on a negative outcome, then all you're doing is wasting a present moment. You need to find a way to let go of your fear here and now, so that you can do the things to not have that negative outcome. And one of those things is your mind has to be set in a positive outcome, not a negative one. Right now with COVID-19, we're all in fear about a lot of different things. I mean, if you look at me, I'm a keynote speaker. My job is to go into small rooms with large numbers of people, right, without masks. And so COVID hit, and the first thing that happened to me was, most of my work went away. But the interesting thing about it is that I was able to at that moment, okay, I'm not in fear. This is an opportunity. What can I make of this opportunity? And I upped my video game, and I upped my podcast guesting, and I upped my marketing, and I upped all everything else in my career. And what's really interesting is I started doing virtual programs, and I started booking them like crazy. When COVID-19, when all goes back to normal, and it will very soon, by the way.
Yeah.
the interesting thing about it is when I come out of this, I'm going to have my live programs, my new virtual programs, my online courses, which are coming down the road, which I've been able to work on while I'm at home, right?
Hmm.
All these things. So I'm going to use the experience of COVID to take me to that next level. It's the same thing. When you're in that moment and you have a small business and you're worried about where the next meal is coming from, you shouldn't be focused on not having the meal. You should be focused on getting the meal.
I love it. I absolutely love that. That is gold right there. So let's dive into this a little bit. You teach the 5 F's of achievement. What are the 5 F's? And then we'll dive into each one individually.
Great. Well, we have tapped into the first of them. The first one is fearlessness. And if you'd like me to just kind of break it down now, I can. Okay.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Fearlessness. As I just said, fear is just an emotional reaction. We all have a natural primal fight or flight response that we all go through. And you can always tell when you're in some sort of fear because your breathing gets shallow. Most people think they can't breathe when they're oh, I'm so scared I can't even catch a breath, right? The interesting thing is physiologically that's not what's happening to your body. What's happening to your body is a natural primal response. And it's best pictured by, imagine if you've ever watched those National Geographic shows on TV, you might have seen that one episode with the gazelle. Did you ever see that?
Maybe, probably.
That one, right?
Probably.
It's always that same gazelle, by the way. It's that doomed gazelle, right? And that gazelle's out there eating grass in the field. It kind of looks like this, right? And suddenly the predator cat hits the field.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing the gazelle does is this, gasp for air.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason that gazelle has gasped for air is because it's filling its lungs up so it can run further and faster. When you're in fear and you feel like you can't breathe and your chest is tight, it's not because you don't have air. It's because your body is holding air in. When you drop into the primal fight or flight response, neuroscience says that you are in now a survival mode as opposed to a achievement mode. And so what you have to do is in that moment, release your fear. How do you do it? The easiest way to do it is the same way they teach actors in Hollywood. They say when you forget your lines on stage, exhale and relax all your muscles. What that does is that naturally shuts off the primal fight or flight response, and all of their lines rush back into their head. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed and in anxiety about where the next meal is coming from, exhale. Okay, what am I going to do now? And your thoughts will come back into play. Your mind will come back into play. So that's the first one, fearlessness. Do you want me to go right into the second?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So I'm very fortunate in my life. I have witnessed action heroes firsthand. I've been on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan on 6 USO tours and got to see what action heroes really are. And when I asked the soldiers how they can set their fear aside and go into a situation where they get shot at, they say it's easy because I have an objective. I have a goal. I have something to focus on. Second of the 5 F's is focus. So you're going to fearlessly focus. You know, when you're standing on top of a tower and you're getting ready to jump off into a fall pad that's way down there, 3 stories down, you're not focused on the tower and you're not focused on jumping from the tower. You're focused on where you're going to land. I promise you that. Right? So you got to get a positive focus in your life. You understand, though, that positive focus rather than negative focus. Because if you sit here in your conscious present moment, which, by the way, is the only moment you have. You can't go to the store next Thursday right now, and you can't go to the store last Thursday right now. There's only one moment you can do anything. But if you sit here in your conscious present moment and you focus on a negative, you're just creating more negative, right? You focus on a positive, then you're creating something positive. What's really interesting about this is your present moment is for stacking positive moments. So you stack positive moments in here. What that does to your subconscious mind is this. All the subconscious mind really is a storehouse of present moment memories. Mm-hmm. And if those present moment memories are all negative, your subconscious mind has a negative belief, right? So you have to actively change your subconscious mind. The way you do this, stack present moments here. But the job of the subconscious mind is twofold. And what's twofold? The first is to collect those memories and give you that subconscious belief. The second thing the subconscious mind does is help you get what you're focused on. So, for instance, have you ever bought a car, Adam?
Yeah,
Okay. Did you choose what kind of car you wanted before you went to the store?
pretty much.
Pretty much. So after you chose that car, did you start seeing that car everywhere?
Yes.
Yeah, it just came right into your mind, didn't it, right? So you started
Yep.
seeing it. Well, your subconscious mind kicked in because you had consciously made a choice. So your subconscious mind was now showing you the car, right? So that's
Hmm.
how it works. So you focus on the car, you saw the car. You focus on a negative thing, you're going to see negative things. You focus on positive things, you're going to see positive things, right? So you have to have that focus, that severe focus on what you want, that real solid focus. But the thing about that focus is you have to realize that that thing that's out there is is a goal that you set for another present moment. Most
Hmm.
people sit in this moment and they think they have to get to that. And that's not the way the brain works. The brain works by saying stacking present moments here brings it to your experience. So realize that that's a big successful outcome that you want is coming to you dependent on the small, tiny little successes you make here and now. So that's focus.
Yeah, I want to pause for a second on that
Yeah.
because I think I I talk to a lot of small business owners, and goal setting is a huge thing. Like, business ownership 101 says set goals, right? And
Yep.
everybody talks about setting goals, and so I ask a lot of people, a lot of business owners, what are your goals, right? And most of the time I hear like this really like foolhardy like money number as a goal, right? If they're a $500,000 a year revenue company, they're like, I'm going to be $1 million company this year. I'm going to be a $3 million company. Like, okay, that's great, but what does that mean?
Right.
And
What's
they
the
start,
purpose?
yeah, and they start to get lost in that a little bit. And I love how you frame focusing on the here and now, the moments, and stacking those moments, because that's I've always approached goal setting on a more micro level. I always have an end target, right? But my end targets tend to not be focused around like a physical, like financial number, right?
Right.
It's they're still reachable, they're still measurable, they're still attainable. It's still the proverbial SMART goal, right? But I always focus on the journey to get there, because when you set targets in the journey, I've always found myself to be far more successful in those. So it's like building a sustainable business, right? So what does that look like? And I've set targets out for what specifically sustainable is, right? And so now I know I need X amount of customers every month, X amount of new customers every month, and I know I need X amount of dollars in recurring revenue every single month. That's sustainable. Once I do
Right.
that, the rest of those, money and all that stuff will come, right? But it helps keep the eye on the prize, I think, in a more meaningful way, because you get away from the overwhelming oh my gosh moment.
The same thing
What?
is you do need to set those milestones, because if you're not setting the milestones, you're not, you're going to become frustrated because you're not
Yep.
there yet, right? It's like
Yep.
if you have 100 pounds to lose, focus on losing the first 10,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you get to the 10, say yay, but don't have ice cream in celebration, right? Right.
Yes.
The problem that I see is a lot of people will set that goal out there and they'll just declare it like they've already got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the reasons you hear these people say you should use your affirmations to get things. I'm like, no.
No.
Affirmation, in my mind, affirmations mean that you're trying to shore something up that's not solid, right? I'm affirming it. I got to get it solid, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
just declare it and go do it. Go do the things you got to do. Why do you need an affirmation? That's a weak kind of flabby word, right? You get that.
I've always thought affirmations is you're taking a conscious effort to convince yourself that this is a good idea.
It's exactly right. It's
And,
like
and
that
if
100-pound guy can say all day long, I have a thin body, but he can look down and still not see his shoes.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard to get past that thing where you can't see your shoes below you, right? So it's an interesting thing because that focus is just a goal you've set. That's all it is, right?
Hmm.
But you're not. It's never going to magically appear in your present moment. The only thing that you can do in your present moment are the small things that are in alignment with it. So stay here and do the things correctly here. Here's the tough part in that. When people get into that space of trying to get to that goal, they mess up sometimes, and
Hmm.
and then they start beating themselves up and wasting the next present moment. Rather than wasting that moment on beating yourself up, why don't you just think that moment was silly and move on?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not doing that because I'm getting my goal.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that, and I love the incremental approach. I think it's so important to be incremental. Those small successes, even I laugh because I don't make my bed, but even the philosophy of making your bed in the morning to positively impact that you've accomplished something for the day right off the bat, can make all the difference in your day. So.
Yeah, for me, it's meditation. I get up, first thing I do is I meditate every day, just so that the whatever I dreamt about the last night is not going to affect my day today. I'm going to get up this
Mhm.
morning and I'm going to clear my mind completely and start completely fresh. And that to me has been overwhelmingly positive because my days have gotten so much easier since I made meditation a regular practice.
So let's pause here for just a moment. I want to thank my affiliate partner, Cowork Hub Virtual. They're giving consultants, coaches, freelancers, and solopreneurs a sense of place in a remote work world. Super, super cool platform. It's absolutely changing the game of what co-working can be because you don't have to be anywhere, but you can still walk down the hall and have a conversation with John, just like you did in a physical co-working space. You get video conferencing, you get conference rooms that can host up to 50 people in them, so you can run your master classes. Absolutely amazing platform. Check them out, coworkhubvirtual.com. If you let them know that you saw them on the Winning Tactics, they will work with you to get a free custom branded background for your own personal office. So check it out. It's like a $50 value. Super cool platform. Definitely encourage you to spend some time there. So and let's get back to the important stuff. John, thanks so much again for being here. We've been talking about mindset. We started off with just framing what mindset is and positive mindset, and then we talked a little bit about fearlessness and focus. What is that third F?
That third F, the one that sits right in the middle, which means it's the core anchor of all of it, is faith, belief, confidence. So fearlessly focus with faith, right? I don't mean religious faith. I mean confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe you're going to achieve it. Because if you can set a focus and a goal, but if you don't have that core strength inside of you to say, I can do this, or I am doing this, specifically, I am doing this. Having the ability by saying I can is not doing it, but saying I am doing it is doing it, right? As Yoda would say, do or do not, there is no try, right? So you have to have that confidence that you can. And so one of the things that's really interesting is, I have a son, he's 17 years old right now, and he's teaching me all kinds of new lessons on hormones. But back when he was 6, he taught me a great lesson about faith. And we have a Nerf crossbow, and one of the things that with a Nerf crossbow, we had a game we used to play where we'd shoot from the living room couch across the living room through the kitchen door, hit the side of a trash can, and it would go ping, and my little 6-year-old would giggle. It was the best, right? But for me, the Nerf crossbow, for those of you who have Nerf crossbows, do you have a Nerf crossbow, Adam?
We have had one, yes.
I have one. Did you notice how accurate they are?
Oh, terribly inaccurate.
Oh, yours was? Mine was perfectly accurate every time.
Ours was terribly inaccurate.
Really? Oh, well, you must have had bent arrows. Ours would hit the target every time, no matter what. And at 6 years old, he would hit the target every time. So what we used to do is used to take these Nerf swords and stand halfway to the trash can, flailing them up and down like this so that the other person couldn't shoot through, right? Well, being the father, my job was to let him win. So I was like leaving the whole center wide open, making it look like I was actually doing something. And he was hitting it every time. Then it became my turn to shoot, and I'd shoot him and the wall and the floor and the ceiling, anything but the trash can, right?
Of course.
Finally, he says, Dad, I know why you miss. Now, at the time, he was 6, right? I said, why? Why do you think I miss, Kynan? He says, because you don't believe you're going to hit it. You don't believe you're going to hit it. You have to have the confidence, the belief that you can achieve anything in your life, right? You have to have the belief to be able to hit your target, to hit your goal. If you don't have that faith, then you're not moving forward. But the next of the 5 F's is the hardest of all of them. And so going into the next one, you have to have faith, right? Because the next one is follow through. You have to fearlessly focus with faith and follow through. You have to actually get off the couch and do something. You have to actually take an action, take a risk, right? If you're not in the moment of taking an action, then you need to stop and say, what am I afraid of that's stopping me? And exhale, because the lack of motion is fear itself. That's the one thing about the 5 F's. They're not in line. They're not linear. They all happen at once. So you have to make sure that you are addressing your fearlessness and focus and faith all the way through the process.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Just that get off the couch mentality, because like Gary Vee says this, and he says, I don't care about giving away every secret that I could ever possibly have. Why? Because 1% of people are actually going to do something about it. And of those people that actually do something about it, maybe 1% of them will ever be competition for where I'm at in my businesses.
Right. I many years ago, I worked my way through college as a landscape designer, and I took a class on landscape lighting. And this guy was showing me everything he knew, and I asked him. I said, "Are you afraid that you're creating your competition?" He says, "I'm not afraid of anything." He says, "The reality of it is, by the time you get as good at this as I am at this, I'm going to be 10 years down the road, doing something more and better, right? So why wouldn't I share my information? Because you're just going to be the guy behind me." So he looks at it that way. For me, it's really interesting because, that action step is the thing that you have to really look into your life and work into your life. If you're not taking an action, you're not being an action hero. You're being a reaction zero. In my mind, you have to make sure that your fear hasn't debilitated you.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally interesting. In business, we spend so much time reacting to everything that's going on around us, and I'm a big proponent of getting out in front of things as much as possible. There's always going to be things that are going to come up, but how can we spend time to get out in front of as much as we possibly can and prevent it from happening before it debilitates us and slows us down and prevents us from completing or doing something that we need to get done.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting about the speaking industry. For a large part of my job is being a motivational speaker. So I'm there to motivate people. Well, when do they need motivation? They need motivation when times are tough, not when times are easy, not when times are great. But the majority of my speeches are when times are easy, when the owner feels like things are going great, we should have a party, right?
Yep.
But that's not when they need empowerment, right? Right now is when they need empowerment, when they're working from home and they're doing things that are so different, and so they're going through change and they're coming back to work and it's going to be very different. And the companies that are hiring me right now, I'm really excited for them because of the fact that what's happening is they're taking the opportunity now to have their team already running when we get back to full capacity, whereas the ones who are afraid to do anything because they're afraid of having the money to pay for a speaker are really behind the ball, in my mind. Yeah, and that's not a sales pitch. That's just a fact.
No, we see that in the marketing industry too, right? Same thing. Marketing is usually one of the first things that companies cut when times get tough, and it's like the companies that double down on marketing always come out way stronger out of this stuff than the ones that cut. Just I'm a firm believer that as long as it's not life or death between you closing your doors and firing all your entire team, you should always have, marketing budget in place, because it's just going to make you stronger.
And on the speaking level, the businesses have to realize that the core strength of their company is their team.
Mm-hmm.
And if their team is not empowered, then you're not putting out a good product anyway. You have to make sure that your team is solidly focused and solidly empowered. When I do my corporate action hero speech, it's interesting. When I do it live, I go into a space and I take one of their team and I bring them on stage. And using the 5 Fs, I take the most timid person I can find. So imagine this person who's just been afraid of what's going on. I bring that person on stage, and under 5 minutes, using the 5 Fs, leading them through the 5 Fs, that person will learn to crack a whip and hit targets out of my hand that I'm holding, right? And it's under 5 minutes time. So, it's really, it's an empowering thing. Well, when do they need that empowerment? They need it when they need it, not when they are partying and having a great time, in flush.
Yep. Yeah. No, I love that philosophy. I think you're spot on. That oftentimes we get stuck in this. We spring for this stuff when times are good, and when times get tough, when we really need services and the motivation and all those pieces that make our business hum along, fear sets in, and we go, right. It doesn't make sense to spend this money. Am I going to hurt myself in the long run? And, there's always risk, but,
right. Well, say, but that thing that comes up kicks us into the 5th of the 5 Fs. And it's the one we actually started our whole conversation on. It's flexibility, mental flexibility. So fearlessly focus with faith, follow through with flexibility, right? When something comes up, and something is always going to come up, right? Right? Always, right? They have to realize that thing can only stop you is if your mind says it stopped me, right? For me to get out of that bed and get back to doing stunt work, I did since I got out of that bed, I did over 4,000 live comedy sword fighting shows all over the world, right? And I mean, I've jumped off buildings, I've been on fire, I've done all kinds of crazy things in my life. I've had the physical career the doctor never said I would. But when that thing came up that seemed to be the obstacle, I didn't think of it as the end. I thought of it as something to overcome to get to to get to what I was going for. Something comes up, it's, as I said earlier, your subconscious mind is showing it to you because it needs to be addressed.
Yep.
Right? It came into your experience because your subconscious mind said, you have a goal, look at this so that you can fix this so you can get to the goal. So for me, whenever an obstacle comes up, I go, oh, good, great. This is another one more step along the way to get my goal. I just have to fix this thing now. And, here I am right now today. I've been in movies, I've been on stages, I've done incredible things in my life because I was able to stay flexible when times got tough. Staying flexible. It's really important.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when I think back at COVID, right? Is the biggest, the most important thing for most businesses was how were they going to flex to working from home, to e-commerce, to selling your services virtually, to, in not being in a physical place. And that, that in itself is a big challenge for a lot of people, because sense of place is something that's super important. But learning how to be flexible, we were all forced to be flexible, and there's people that did really well, and there's people that definitely struggled with it, as they tried to figure out what, and I hate this term, the new normal is, but
well, change is a constant.
Yeah.
And so change is normal. And so even, when something comes along, it's like, if you think about this, when you take water that's running in a stream down the hill, as it's tumbling down that hill, it's got life-giving oxygen and all this stuff that's in it that's making it alive. Take that same water, let it land in a puddle, and let it sit there and go stagnant. It becomes poisonous, and bugs start to lay their eggs in it, and becomes a nasty experience, right? Life is motion. And if you're not in motion, then you're just stagnating. So, take your mind and go, okay, what are the possibilities? it's sitting here in this room right now. There's a lot of bad things that happen with COVID, but there's a lot of good things that happen with COVID too. Like, for instance, you don't know whether or not I'm wearing pants right now. And for me, that's a positive. It's probably a positive for you too, because you can't see it.
It's fantastic. You know, I'm not even gonna pretend to lie about this one, but I fight everything to not wear anything that I have, any pair of pants or shorts that I have to wear a belt with, right? So, you know, basketball shorts are like primary MO, you know, for most days. That is
right now. Right now, I am wearing sweatpants and slippers.
Perfect.
Perfect, right?
You know, if you comfort is key, right? You know,
absolutely. You know, I look good from here up, and that's all that really matters, right?
So yeah, no, I absolutely love it. So one more time, can you run down those 5 F's for us?
Yeah, it's fearlessly focus with faith, follow through with flexibility.
Awesome. I always like to wrap up my shows with one thing that business owners can take away from the show and apply to their business tomorrow. Just based on what we've talked about today, what is your final thought for today's show?
Get out of tomorrow, let go of yesterday, and be here today. And do the things that you can actively do with your thoughts, words, and deeds.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Where can people find you?
I am easy to find, corporateactionhero.com. If you go to that site, there's all kinds of daily vlog on there, and there's my podcast is on there. You can find me on YouTube as Corporate Action Hero. You can find me all over the place as Corporate Action. You search Corporate Action Hero in Google, you will find 3 or 4 pages of me. And I'm giving your audience a free gift of the 5F workbook. And when I say free, I mean free. I'm not even going to ask you for an email address or anything. I'm just going to give you guys the link, which I think Adam's going to put in his show notes, I'm assuming.
Yep. I will make sure they get in the show notes.
And so you just go there, download it, and it'll help you go through your own process when you're building your businesses and going out to go to that next level. This is just kind of a way to help you get along and get to that next space. So enjoy that. And while you're on my site anyway, just look around, see if you like what you see.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate all of your knowledge. Super awesome things. Mindset is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things that we have. It can make or break pretty much any situation that we're in. So
I agree. In fact, I would go one step further and say it makes and breaks every situation we're in.
Absolutely fantastic. As always, we post our shows on YouTube and all the major podcast platforms every Thursday. So look for it there. You can check out all of our back episodes. And while you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a single show. Catch us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at The Winning Tactics. And we appreciate your time. And John, thank you so much again for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge. And we will see you all again next Tuesday, same time, same place.
Well, that wraps up yet another episode of the Winning Tactics Podcast. You can find Adam on both the LinkedIn and Facebook platforms. And to support the show and ensure the success of the podcast, would you kindly consider visiting Patreon.com/Adam Sinkus? We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, from the Winning Tactics Podcast, remember, culture is how your team behaves when no one is looking. Take good care, and thanks for listening.